For the index of learning styles, for active versus reflective, I got 11 points towards reflective, which is the highest you can get, I believe. I would agree with that because I definitely consider myself an overthinker. I'm not very impulsive. If it's something where other people are depending on me, then I will very much so think through it. Whereas though, if it is a topic that I'm not good at, I'm more likely to be impulsive. Like if it is an English paper, I'm not good with English, and so I will just kind of get through it as quick as I can because it's not really something that I care to think about. But I would like to think that I have at least kind of an intelligence about my impulsivity. And then for sensing versus intuitive, I got 3 points towards sensing. I would say that I'm a mixture of the both of them. Right, so I am a very factual person, so I do like facts. But at the same time, I'm also a problem solver and an analyzer. So I like a chance to make my own discoveries and to find my own relationships between topics rather than it all being laid out for me. And then for visual and verbal, I got 9 points towards visual, which I would agree with. I do way better with images than I do with words just because I've got a processing disorder that makes it kind of difficult to make the connection between a word and what it means. And that's not always the case. It's usually just if I'm reading, but it can happen with like an instructor also. I sometimes just kind of space out and have a really difficult time comprehending what someone means, especially if it's a topic that I have no interest in. If I can recall the imagery, I can usually recall the topic and what the and what it was about. Right, so it's a lot easier for me to remember verbal communication if it is more of a conversation and it's more engaging, because I'll have an easier time recalling what I had said because I'll remember what my thought process was, and that helps me to remember what the other person said versus just listening to someone and, you know, gaining all of that information. That just, it doesn't work with me. And I really have a hard time reading, especially because I have very mild dyslexia. I just kind of mix everything up, and so it's easier to just kind of glaze over it than to try to sort everything out sometimes. But like if I'm trying to recall a conversation, even if it's something as simple as like looking at a clock and seeing what the time is, if I can recall what the clock said the time was, and I can usually recall what that conversation was. So that definitely happens in school and with learning. Even with reading, if I'm listening to a song or something while I read, and then I'm able to picture that song, I know that that's also kind of audible rather than visual, but it helps me to recall what the verbal instruction was. And then for sequential versus global, I got 3 points towards sequential. I don't really have a preference to one or the other. I know that everyone will kind of have a leniency towards what works for them best, but neither really matters to me. It's more dependent on what the subject is rather than what my learning style is. Because I'm a very logical person, sequential does assist me in getting through things that I'm not used to. So if it's a topic that I know really nothing about, then something sequential will help because it's easier to just kind of go step by step rather than just kind of have this big vast amount of comprehension that you need to obtain. So I like working towards one thing at a time and connecting all that to reach a larger goal. But if it's something that I'm well versed in, then I will appreciate to have a more global understanding of it because I like to pull it apart on my own and try to understand it without the need of someone to lay out steps for me. But even in the globalization of it, I will still have very logical, smaller compartments of a bigger topic. I I don't know if I did any of this right, but that is my learning preferences.